The pickup truck may be the most American vehicle ever built, not because of what it carries, but because of what it represents. If you agree, you will enjoy this video looking at 10 of the rarest American pickup trucks. Kicking things off is the 1967 Dodge Diora, which answered the question of what a truck could look like in a way nobody else had considered. This wasn't a factory project with a dedicated team and a formal brief. Custom builders Mike and Larry Alexander took a Dodge A100 van-based pickup and spent the better part of a year turning it into something that looked like it belonged in a different decade entirely. The most immediately striking thing was the complete absence of conventional doors. Getting into the cab meant the entire windshield had to tilt forward on its hinges, opening the nose of the vehicle like a clamshell. That single decision gave the body a visual continuity that conventional trucks never came close to achieving. With no door gaps, no handles, and no hinges interrupting the surface anywhere. The bed sat low and transitioned into the cab in a way that felt cohesive rather than bolted together. Dodge running gear sat underneath, keeping things mechanically conventional even if the exterior told a very different story. The Diora developed a serious following on the show circuit, and its cultural standing was cemented when Hot Wheels chose it for their very first lineup in 1968. Not many full-size customs can claim that. Next up is the 1966 Ford Ranger II, which Ford brought to the Chicago Auto Show as one of the more genuinely ambitious truck concepts the company ever produced. Built on an F250 platform, its defining feature was a cab that could physically change its configuration at the press of a button. The rear portion of the roof structure slid 18 inches backward into the bed area. A new roof section dropped into place, and a pair of additional bucket seats appeared in the expanded cabin. A two-seat working truck became a four-passenger vehicle without the driver touching anything other than a switch. In its standard pickup form, the bed ran the conventional 6 by 8 feet and was finished with walnut flooring, aluminum loading rails, and courtesy lighting. The exterior featured rectangular high-intensity headlamps, an aluminum grille, and a windshield built from a specially tempered plastic compound rather than conventional glass. Entry to the cab used hydraulically operated aircraft-style canopy doors, and the hood could be released through the truck's central control system. The finish was a color called Clearwater Aqua. Under the hood sat a 390 cubic inch V8 with 3 carburetors. The Ranger II measured 18 feet in length, stood 57 inches tall, and rode a 120-inch wheelbase. As truck concepts go, it remains one of the more inventive things Ford put together during the 1960s. Moving into the early 1970s, American Motors took a swing at the compact truck segment with the 1971 AMC Jeep Cowboy. The context matters here. Japanese pickups were starting to arrive in real numbers, and AMC saw a gap worth filling with something domestic. 3 prototypes were constructed, each slightly different from the others. The first carried Jeep badging and wore red paint. The other 2 were rebadged as AMC products, largely because the company had concerns about putting the Jeep name on a vehicle without 4-wheel drive. The foundation for all 3 was the AMC Hornet platform, making the Cowboy a car-based pickup rather than a conventional body-on-frame design. Instead of integrating the cab and cargo area as one-piece designer, Jim Alexander pushed for a separate cab and box arrangement, held together by a stub frame at the rear. One prototype ran a 360 cubic inch V8 from the Hornet SC 360, while another paired a 6-cylinder engine with a Gremlin front fascia. AMC eventually decided the Hornet hatchback was the smarter commercial bet for 1973, and the Cowboy was shelved without reaching production. In hindsight, with compact pickups going on to dominate the market for decades, that decision looks increasingly difficult to defend. By the late 1980s, the industry had started asking not just what a truck should look like, but what it actually was. The 1988 GMC Centaur was one attempt at an answer, and it was a genuinely strange one. The name referenced the half-man, half-horse figure from mythology, which turned out to be surprisingly accurate for what GMC had built. The front section presented a rounded passenger car-influenced nose with seating for 5 across 2 rows. Behind that came a conventional cargo bed positioned over a rear-mounted 3.0-liter inline-6 that sat beneath the load floor rather than up front under a hood. That unconventional engine placement defined the vehicle's proportions and gave the front end its car-like character. Power went through an experimental 5-speed automatic paired with all-wheel drive, while 4-wheel steering helped compensate for weight distribution that didn't follow normal rules. Self-leveling air suspension completed a technical package that was genuinely ambitious for the period. The Centaur never made it to production, though traces of its rear styling appeared later on both the S10 and S15. As legacies go for forgotten concepts, that's not nothing. The 1989 Chevrolet XT2 came at things from a very different angle, where the Centaur was exploring versatility. The XT2 was purely about going fast, and it had a real-world reason to be. The truck served as an official pace vehicle for the kart PPG IndyCar World Series, which meant speed wasn't optional. A 4.5-liter V6 traced its lineage back to Trans Am competition and produced roughly 360 horsepower, enough to reach 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds. The chassis used a tube frame construction with integrated roll protection rather than a conventional truck structure. Among the more unusual details was the enormous raked windshield that also functioned as an engine access panel. When lifted open on gas struts, the paintwork used a 3-stage PPG process that shifted between electric blue and purple depending on the light conditions, which was exactly the kind of detail that stuck in people's memories. The XT2 never became a production vehicle, but it made a convincing case that racing hardware and truck packaging could coexist. Ford's 1990 F-150 Street took a completely different approach. No racing connection, no mechanical upgrades, just a focused exercise in visual design. Starting with a standard F-150, the team dropped the roofline by 3.5 inches and lowered the suspension 4 inches at the front and 3 at the rear, leaving the truck with a nose-down stance that looked aggressive from every angle. 16-inch wheels filled the arches more convincingly than any standard truck of the era, and the body details reinforced the custom feel throughout. Door handles shaved smooth, the antenna neatly buried into the metalwork. 4 exhaust outlets integrated directly into the lower rockers rather than hanging below the bumper. Everything about the exterior implied serious mechanical intent. The engine, however, was completely stock. Ford was making a styling argument rather than a performance one, which is either refreshingly straightforward or slightly frustrating, depending on what you were hoping for. Either way, it remains one of the more visually coherent custom truck concepts the company has produced. 3 years on Ford went somewhere quite different with the 1993 F-Series Hydro concept, where the Street was about looking sharp in a car park. The Hydro was about getting wet and not caring. Built on an F-150 stepside, the concept had its doors and roof removed entirely, leaving a fully open vehicle with no weather protection and apparently no interest in providing any. The entire concept was built around transporting watercraft jet skis specifically, which explained both the open layout and the casual attitude toward rain. Hard specification details on the Hydro are thin on the ground today, partly because it was never a serious production candidate, and documentation from the period is limited. But the underlying idea was clear enough. Ford wanted to know whether a truck could carry a lifestyle identity as strongly as it carried a load. The Hydro suggested yes. Even if the answer was more literal than most people expected, it never went anywhere near a production line. but it sits as an early, unambiguous example of the lifestyle thinking that would eventually reshape how the entire pickup category sold itself. The 1994 Ford Power Stroke concept had a more grounded purpose than most entries on this list. Ford was preparing to introduce a new direct-injection turbo diesel for its heavy-duty lineup, and the concept gave them a platform to show what that engine could deliver before it reached showrooms. The figures were 210 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque, with cold start capability down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit in under 2 seconds, a detail that meant a great deal to fleet and commercial buyers. The truck itself was a heavy-duty design with dual rear wheels, a stretched wheelbase, and projector headlights that looked ahead of their time for the mid-1990s. An 8,000-pound winch integrated front tow hooks, 17-inch aluminum wheels and mirrors with built-in signal and brake indicators rounded out a package aimed squarely at operators who needed to work hard and travel far. Inside leather captain's chairs and a CB radio made the comfort case. The Power Stroke concept stands apart from most show trucks because the technology at its core actually made it to market. The diesel powertrain became one of the most recognized in the segment's history, and the idea of combining genuine heavy-duty capability with a premium interior became the blueprint for top-tier trucks across every American brand. Among the most extreme machines of the entire decade was the 1996 Dodge Ram T-Rex. Shown at SEMA with essentially no concern for practicality, Dodge added a complete extra axle at the rear, producing a 6-wheel drive layout with 3 axles total. A modified 8.0-liter Magnum V10 produced close to 500 horsepower and nearly 600 pound-feet of torque, pushing a vehicle that weighed somewhere around 12,000 pounds to 60 miles per hour in roughly 8 seconds. A computer-managed air suspension handled ride and load distribution across varying terrain. Nobody at Dodge was seriously calculating what this would cost on a dealer lot. The T-Rex existed to find the outer edge of what a pickup truck could theoretically be, and it found it convincingly. Closing the list is the 1997 Dodge Sidewinder, which chased a similar spirit through entirely different means. The T-Rex piled on mass and axles. The Sidewinder stripped everything back to pure performance in a package that still technically qualified as a truck. The chassis came from Riley & Scott, the outfit behind the Viper GTS competition car, and the engine was the Viper's own 8.0-liter V10 pushed beyond 640 horsepower. 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, top speed of 170 miles per hour. The body sat implausibly low for something with a cargo bed, and wide fender flares over 21-inch front and 22-inch rear wheels gave it a stance that had far more in common with a racing paddock than a job site. 15-inch brake discs handled the stopping, which, given the power involved, was an entirely necessary consideration. Production was never on the table. The Sidewinder was too extreme, too specialized, and too expensive to build at any realistic scale. But as a demonstration of what happens when engineers are handed a blank page and no constraints, it made its point clearly. After looking at all 10 of these, the same theme keeps surfacing. American automakers spent decades asking unusual questions about what a pickup truck could be, and the most ambitious answers almost never made it to a showroom. The Diora wondered whether a truck needed doors. The Ranger 2 asked if a cab could transform on demand. The T-Rex tested how many axles a truck could carry, and the Sidewinder explored what happened when performance became the only consideration. Most of those questions went unanswered in production, but they were part of a broader creative push that helped shape the most commercially dominant vehicle segment in American automotive history. That's worth keeping in mind.